everybody, Gina DeLuca here. Okay, today I am going to be doing another flower pour. This one has more petals than the one that I have been using. And I am going to be trying something. The way that you load the cup very much affects the outcome. And so typically if I'm doing a boulder pour, I want those really cool looking 3D cells, and I will pour from up high and allow them to mix and churn, and that's what gets them to blend together and create that awesome 3D effect. But if I layer it more gently, then I kind of get a little more separation of those cells, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm actually going to be loading a little differently than usual. You will see, if you watch all the time, you'll see how it's a little different. But anywho, the colors we are using today: DecoArt Americana Decor Matte Metallics in Aged Bronze. The DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics in 24 karat gold and in copper. The background / base coat color is Arteza Mars Brown. These paints have been mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. And then that mixture is thinned with water, or you can use a mixture of 90% water and 10% Floetrol. You add that to your 1 part paint, 2 parts Floetrol mixture until you get the consistency that you're looking for. I am working, this is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it disappears pretty quickly. You want the paint to come off of your stick in a nice, thin, even stream. If it is not, your consistency is inconsistent and you need to mix some more. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art Inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video right here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need: the exact paint brand, color, consistency, the recipe, of course, the technique, all of the things that I can't fit onto a card. This is a picture of the painting in this video. This box contains a tip for that technique. Here at the bottom, you have the color palette that was used in this painting. And then these 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those colors. And there are 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of the colors. Mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. This contraption here I got from the paintpourstore.com. It's actually part of a 2-piece set, but I'm just using this part to create petals. And I kind of want more of a sunflowery type thing going on, so I opted for the more petal version of this. And if you go to paintpourstore.com to get yourself some of this, use code GINA15, get 15% off. And yeah, these things are pretty nifty. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is add about 2 ounces of paint to my cup here. That is going to serve as the background color. The background color is the color that appears in between the cells. I call it background because the cells kind of pop up to the foreground. That becomes background. This is going to be the base coat. The base coat is to help your paints slide around evenly. if you do not have a base coat down, like something has to stick to the canvas first. And if it is not your base coat, it is going to be your pour puddle. And the problem with that is sometimes the coolest stuff happens on the outer edges. And if you don't have a base coat, it is the outer edge that is going to stick to the canvas first. And then the rest of the paints will just roll over top of those paints. So then you lose everything that's on the edge. And you will also notice that I have covered the sides already. I always do that because I would rather have the sides look good before I start than have to worry about coming back later and touching it up, especially if I wind up using a custom color. But these round canvases are puckered on the side. And if you don't cover the sides first, you will not get great coverage on those puckers. So I cover them first with the straight paint, so I do not have to touch that up. But when you're using Floetrol and you're mixing on the thinner side, as I do for straight pours, even if there are no puckers on the side of your canvas, it can still not give you great coverage and your canvas will show through a bit. So I just like to troubleshoot before there's trouble and save myself a step later. It is much faster to do this and cover it ahead of time than it is to go back and try to do it after. I like to pop the bubbles in the base coat because they will come up through your pour. If you don't, base coat is down. I'm going to put some paint in a cup. So what I'm going to do is take half of this bronze and let it sink and churn. I want that to be in the center. And let me see if I can get a little more light over here. There we go. And then the rest I'm going to gently layer. Be sure to check your consistency before adding to your cup. The sauce may thicken upon standing. Again, pouring gently. I'm going to do the rest of the aged bronze here. Okay. Then I'm going to take most of what is left in this cup and just go over top. So this background color is glossier than the DecoArt paints. The DecoArt paints dry matte. I should have placed this before I did my cup. I'll just have to be quick about it. Okay, my flower maker is centered and I am going to pour and spin clockwise. The reason I'm spinning is because I want these colors to kind of come out evenly all the way around the canvas. If I did not spin, then I might have gold on one side and copper on the other, which can be a cool look. It's just not what I'm going for. I want these colors to be distributed throughout the flower. And what I'm hoping is the gold and copper take over. I end up with the metallic bronze in the center and possibly on the outer edges. Experimenting with how you load your cup can yield very different results. It makes a big difference. And I don't want to pour faster than the vessel can hold, so I try to be mindful. I've got some gold and copper coming out here. As the paint comes out of my cup slower, I will spin slower. I'm going to go in the other direction for just a wee bit. It will give it more of a flowery center. It will look more like petals than a spiral if you change direction a few times. Oop, okay, whew, that was close. Almost dripped. All right. So now to pop bubbles. So the bubbles that are sitting in the underlying layers of paint, as they come up, it brings some of that paint with it. So if there's a layer of gold sitting underneath of here, and there is a bubble in it, when that bubble comes to the top, it brings some of that gold with it. And because matte paints have a hydrophobic reaction to glossier paints, what you get are cells. The gold paint will push away the brown paint. So we want to pop the bubbles, but that is also why you pop the bubbles in your base coat first, so that you are getting, if you're getting cells, you're going to get because it is cells. They're still cells. If you get tiny little pinhead sized cells, they're still cells, but they're not the kind of cells you really want, right? So I will let this sit and let this paint puddle percolate. Let these bubbles come up and allow those paints to do the thing that they do, which is have the hydrophobic reaction, push the other paints away. Those cells will develop and get a little bigger. And then when I go to spin this, those cells will get even bigger. So the more I allow them to develop here, the more I will get, the bigger cells I will get. So the bigger I allow them to get before I spin, the bigger they'll be after. That was a long-winded way of saying that. Sometimes I like to spin a bit before I take this off, and sometimes I want to take it off before I spin, and I'm trying to decide which. And I think I'm going to take it off before I spin this time. Okay. So I do want to touch up that. That's it. That's all. The tiniest little bit. It was going to bother me. So for those who have been watching for a while, look how much more level my workspace is. Usually it is definitely like leaning toward one side and I have to keep spinning it, but this came out pretty even. So thank you to my dear friend who helped me get my workspace leveled out. It's good to have buddies. Right. So my copper is probably a little old, so I might need to open up a new jar of that. When they sit for a while, they do kind of lose their reactiveness a bit. But we'll see once I start stretching out, because there is a lot of paint on here. And so as that top layer gets stretched, more of that paint from underneath can make its way through. All right, one more torch and we're going to give this a spin. You'll notice I am not torching the center. I don't want cells in the center. That's not what I'm going for. Okay, so I already have full coverage here, right? For the most part. Oh, let me fix this little spot. If you notice on your painting that you have a little spot that isn't covering as easily, check your sides to make sure that it is wet with your base coat. I'm just touching this, all of this up. It's all going to get covered when I spin, but I want that coverage to be even. So I'm just making sure that what is happening on the sides, everything is nice and slippery with wet base coat. Okay, much better. That should help a lot. You can see this is where it wasn't covering and all I did was wet that, and now it's sliding over on its own and evening out. Okay, let's give this a twirl. Oh, actually, let's give this one more pop. I see more bubbles. You get lots of bubbles, I'm telling you. All right. You don't have to spin fast. That is not necessary. If you've ever had a painting That was not level. You know how much it can move over time. So the difference between the layering, when I do the mix and churn, I don't get these very distinctive lines. Like, they're not quite as distinctive. They're there, but it's not as evident. I think they spread out a bit more. Okay. I'm just going to keep going here. I mean, this flower in the center, that's going to be the focal point, right? So the bigger that is, like, it's fine. But by stretching out the rest of it, I can allow for more cells to pop up. I'm going to give this another torch. I see more bubbles. That top layer is thinning out. The bubbles are kind of trying to come out. Sometimes it just takes patience. Straight pours are the patience. Patience is going to be your best friend. With a straight pour, it takes time for cells to develop. It's probably going to be really hard to see, but there is a really cool, delicate pattern going on in there. You'll probably be able to see it in the close-up. But that's pretty interesting. More bubbles. This does not look like much right now, but I'm telling you, as this sits, more cells are going to develop. I can see them trying to make their way through, and the more I spin this and stretch it and pop those bubbles, the more cells I'm going to get. And yet more bubbles. Okay. I think I'm going to leave this be. Not exactly what I was going for, but it's fluid art. You don't always get what you're going for when you experiment. That is just how it goes. But it's still cool to me. I like it. It's a very neutral piece. I think it's going to get a lot more blingy as it sits, and those there's gold cells in here that are trying to come up, and some copper gold blend trying to come up through there. I anticipate seeing more of that. It'll zhuzh it up a bit. Okay, I'm gonna let this sit, and I'm gonna bring you in for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, here it is. It has been sitting for a bit. I had a bit more cell action. There may still be more coming up. These things can just continue to develop for quite some time. But now you can kind of see that cool, delicate pattern in the flower area, in the those edges. I just think that is very cool. Kind of looks like a peony or a rose, but there it is. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Please do like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff. If you're subscribed, please make sure you've clicked that bell so you can be notified. YouTube changed something and my subscribers are not receiving notifications. It's like 0.01% of my views are coming from subscribers, so my subscribers don't know that my videos are going up. That's a bummer. So make sure you click that bell and say to notify you of all uploads. Check out the description box below for links to my affiliates, DecoArt being one of them, if you want to get your hands on some of these cell makers. I didn't get a tremendous amount of cells this time. I'm wondering if it's the Mars Black not reacting, because I don't think I've ever used, or I'm sorry, Mars Brown. I'm not sure that I've ever used Mars Brown as a background. So it could be that. It could be that some of my paints were pretty old, but I don't think that's it, because it was a fresh aged bronze, just opened. And the 24 karat gold is pretty recently opened, so there should have been a bit more action. But I'm not mad at it. It's a more subtle piece, something nice and neutral. Let's see. In the description box, you will also find a link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and the fluid art inspiration cards for sale. And you will find the link to our Facebook group, Go Make Some Art. Join us there, post your masterpieces, ask your questions, get some inspiration. A good time is had by most. It is the internet after all. Yes, lots of information in that description box, so go check that out. And yeah, that is gonna be it for me for today. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.